I had never been the type to get jealous. If my wife, Sarah, wanted to take a vacation with her best friend, Megan, I did not think twice about it. She worked hard and deserved to enjoy herself. In fact, I had been the one to encourage her to go. Relax, have fun, I had said. And that was my mistake, trusting her without question. She left on a Thursday morning, suitcase rolling behind her, giving me a quick kiss before heading out the door. I will text you when we land, she had promised. And she did. A short message, nothing out of the ordinary. Landed. It is beautiful here. No pictures, no long phone calls, just a few scattered texts letting me know she was having a great time. I had no reason to suspect anything. Why would I? My days were the same as always. Long hours at work, coming home to an empty house, waiting for her to get back. But something about her messages started to feel off. Maybe it was how vague she was when I asked about her trip. Maybe it was the way she always seemed too busy to talk on the phone. I pushed the feeling aside, convincing myself I was overthinking. Then, on the fourth day of her trip, I got the photo. It was not from her. It was not even from a number I recognized. No name, no message, just an image attached. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe some spam text. My thumb hovered over it, and a strange, sinking feeling settled in my gut. When I finally opened it, my entire world shifted. There was Sarah, standing on a beach at sunset, her arms wrapped around a man. Not just any man, Megan's brother, Ryan. Ryan had known Sarah for years. They worked in the same office, had gone to the same company events, exchanged friendly banter at holiday parties. I had never given him much thought. He had always seemed like just another guy in the background of our lives. But now, looking at the way he held her, the way she leaned into him, there was no mistaking what this was. My fingers turned ice cold. My breath came slow and shallow. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stared at the screen, hoping, foolishly, that there was some logical explanation. But there was not. The way she clung to him, the way he pulled her close. This was not innocent. This was not a misunderstanding. I did not react at first. I did not throw my phone, did not shout or punch a hole in the wall. I just sat there, frozen, feeling something inside me collapse. I did not respond to the message. I did not even try to figure out who sent it. But I saved the photo. She was coming home in 3 days. And when she walked through that door, she was going to find a very different man than the one she left behind. That night, I did not sleep. The image burned into my mind, playing over and over every time I closed my eyes. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing outside. It felt like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. I checked my phone 100 times, waiting for another message, another clue, something to make sense of this. But there was nothing, just that one picture, sitting there like a time bomb. Morning came, and I forced myself through my routine. I made coffee, but it tasted like nothing. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through Sarah's texts from the past few days, trying to find the moment where everything shifted. Miss you. She had written just last night. Wish you were here. Lies. Every single word. I could have confronted her right then. I could have called her, sent her the picture, demanded an explanation. But I did not. Not yet. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I checked her social media. Sarah was not big on posting, but Megan was. And sure enough, Megan had been documenting their trip in real time. Drinks by the pool, sightseeing, fancy dinners. Everything looked picture perfect. Too perfect. Something was wrong. Sarah was barely in the photos. Sometimes in the background, sometimes cropped out, sometimes just a reflection in a window. And Ryan? Nowhere to be seen. It was deliberate. I put my phone down, my pulse hammering in my ears. My stomach churned. It was not just Sarah keeping secrets. Megan was covering for her. I needed more than a single photo. That is when I remembered Sarah had a work phone. She barely used it, but it was still linked to our shared cloud storage. I had never checked it before, never had a reason to. Until now, I logged in. It took a few seconds to load. And then I saw everything. Photo after photo. Some looked innocent. Others did not. Sarah and Ryan at a rooftop bar, drinks in hand, leaning in too close. Sarah in a hotel mirror, wearing a dress I had never seen before. Sarah on that same beach from the picture I had received, except in this one, Ryan was not just holding her. He was kissing her. I slammed my laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. I gripped the edge of the table, my hands trembling. This was not a mistake. This was not bad judgment. This was a full-blown affair happening right under my nose. I had spent years trusting this woman, years building a life with her. And now, I was supposed to sit here and wait for her to come home like nothing had happened? No. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. My body was shaking, not from sadness, but from something else. This was not just betrayal. This was war. For the next 2 days, I barely functioned. Every minute felt like an eternity, my mind spinning in 1,000 different directions. I did not eat much, did not sleep much. Sarah kept texting me. Went jet skiing today. So much fun. Miss you, babe. Can't wait to see you. Flight lands at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Love you. Love you. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I forced myself to respond. Calm. Distant. Playing along. Sound fun. Miss you too. See you Sunday. Lies. Just like hers. But unlike her, I was not lying because I wanted to hide something. I was lying because I wanted to watch her crumble when she realized just how much I knew. Sunday came. I checked my phone at 5:30 p.m. Sarah had texted me. Landed. Can't wait to see you. I did not reply. I just sat on the couch, waiting, my hands clenched into fists, my heartbeat steady and slow. At exactly 6:45 p.m., I heard the front door unlock. I did not move. The door swung open, and there she was. Sarah rolled her suitcase inside, looking exhausted but happy. She was tan, her hair slightly lighter from the sun, her nails freshly done. She set her bag down and looked at me with a wide smile, like she had missed me, like she had not been betraying me for days. Hey, baby, she sighed, stepping toward me. God, I am exhausted. That flight was... Stop. One word. That was all it took. Her smile vanished. She froze mid-step, her eyes locking onto mine, finally noticing the way I was looking at her. What is wrong? She asked carefully. I did not speak. I just pulled out my phone, opened the photo, and turned the screen toward her. I watched the color drain from her face. And that was the moment I knew she was not going to beg. She was going to fight. Insecure, I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You disappear for a week, lie about where you are, show up in another man's arms, and I am the problem. Sarah groaned, throwing up her hands. Oh my God, listen to yourself. You were so paranoid. Maybe if you actually paid attention to me, I would not have needed a break in the first place. I stared at her, barely believing what I was hearing. She was not just denying it. She was blaming me. Blaming me for the fact that she had been screwing another man behind my back. I had expected something, an excuse, a weak apology, some kind of regret. But there was none of that. Sarah was not sorry. She was angry that I found out. And that was when I knew there was nothing left to save. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly I thought the screen might crack. Sarah stood in front of me, arms crossed, chin lifted, eyes burning with defiance. Not a single trace of guilt, not even the slightest flicker of shame. She was not scared. She was not regretful. She was furious. I exhaled slowly, pushing the anger back, keeping myself steady. The past few days had been a blur of shock, heartbreak, and nausea. The sickening realization that my wife had spent her vacation wrapped around another man. But right now, in this moment, all of that faded into something else, something cold, something final. I want you to say it, I said, my voice steady. Say what? She snapped, rolling her eyes. Say what you did. She let out a bitter laugh. Are you serious? You actually expect me to confess to something that never even happened? I did not move, did not blink. She huffed. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. Ryan and I got close. Really close. And do you know why? Because, unlike you, he actually notices me. I clenched my jaw. So you did cheat. She tilted her head slightly, lips curling into something that was not quite a smile. Define cheat. I stared at her, my pulse pounding in my ears. Did you sleep with him? My voice was flat, emotionless. For a second, just a second, she hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the side. It was the kind of pause people make when they are searching for the right way to spin the truth. That was all I needed. I exhaled sharply and nodded to myself. Got it. Oh, please, Sarah scoffed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. Do not act like some victim, like you're this perfect husband who never does anything wrong. You made me do this. I blinked. I made you cheat. She threw her hands in the air. What did you expect? You're always working. You barely talk to me. You never take me anywhere, never make me feel special. And now you are shocked that I found attention somewhere else. She crossed her arms, her expression hard. You neglected me. That is why this happened. I stared at her, struggling to process what I was hearing. She was really doing this. I had imagined this conversation in a dozen different ways. I had expected denial, maybe even tears. But this was something else. This was entitlement. My mind flashed back to all the nights I'd stayed late at work, pushing through exhaustion so we could afford the things she wanted. The vacations, the surprises, the effort I put into making her happy. And now, after betraying me, she stood in our home, looking me in the eye, and said this was my fault. I let out a slow breath, forcing down the rage that threatened to explode. So, let me get this straight, I said, keeping my voice eerily calm. You lied to me, snuck around behind my back, slept with another man, and now you are standing here blaming me for it. She did not even flinch. Yes, because if you were a better husband, I would not have needed to. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not in anger, not in pain, in clarity. This was not a mistake. This was who she was. And I was done. I stood up slowly, watching as Sarah instinctively took a small step back. She was not expecting that. All right, I said, my tone even. You are right. Her eyebrows pulled together. What? You are right, I repeated. I've been neglecting you, and you do deserve better. Her eyes narrowed, like she was trying to figure out where I was going with this. So, I continued, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to give you exactly what you deserve. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped a few buttons, and set it down on the counter. A second later, Sarah's phone buzzed. She frowned, grabbed it, and checked the screen. And then she froze. Her mouth opened slightly, her breath hitching, her body going stiff. Because staring back at her were all the pictures, every screenshot, every stolen moment, every piece of proof. I had just sent them to her parents. Her hands trembled as she looked back at me. You're going to need a place to stay, I said, cutting her off. Because you sure as hell are not staying here. Her breath came fast and shallow. Wait. No. My voice was steel. No more excuses. No more lies. You do not get to cheat and still act like the victim. I stepped past her, heading for the front door. I needed air. I needed space. But just before I walked out, I turned back one last time. Oh, I said, tilting my head slightly. And you might want to call your boss. Because I sent those pictures to HR too. Sarah's face drained of all color. You did not. I smirked. Hope Ryan was worth it. And with that, I walked out. I stepped into the night air, inhaling deep, letting the cold hit my skin. My hands were still shaking, but not from sadness. I was not broken anymore. I was just done. The second I had sent those pictures, I had crossed a line I could never come back from. And I did not regret it. Not one bit. I walked down the driveway, my mind buzzing, my pulse steady and strong. My phone vibrated in my pocket, and I knew exactly who it was before I even looked. Sarah. I ignored it. Then another call. Megan. I let that one ring out too. And then a third. Sarah's mother. That one made me pause. I was not surprised she had seen the photos. Sarah's parents were old-fashioned, strict, the kind of people who valued loyalty and commitment. The kind of people who had welcomed me into their family with open arms when Sarah and I first got married. And now they just found out that their perfect daughter had been sneaking around behind my back. I debated ignoring the call, letting them sit in the wreckage of their daughter's choices. But something told me I needed to hear what they had to say. I answered, "Hello." There was a sharp inhale on the other end, followed by Sarah's mother's voice, tight with barely contained rage. "Tell me everything." I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. "I think the pictures told you enough." "No." Her voice was sharp. "I want details. How long? Where? Did she—" Her voice broke, and she inhaled sharply. Did she actually sleep with him? I hesitated. Then, yes. A deep silence followed, so heavy I could almost hear her struggling to breathe. Finally, she exhaled shakily. She told me you were making things up, that you were being paranoid. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she did. More silence. Then, softer this time, I raised her better than this. I did not know what to say to that. I had spent days consumed by my own pain. I had not even thought about theirs. I heard her father's voice in the background, low and gruff. Give me the phone. A moment later, he spoke, his voice calm, but full of something cold and final. I did not want her in my house. I blinked. What? Insecure. I repeated, my voice deadly calm. You disappear for a week, lie to my face, wrap yourself around another man, and somehow, I am the problem. Megan scoffed, shaking her head like I was being ridiculous. You are blowing this way out of proportion. It was just a vacation, for God's sake. You act like I had some grand scheme to hurt you. I just stared at her. No words. No reaction. Just letting her talk. She threw up her hands. Maybe if you actually paid attention to me, I would not have needed to take a break at all. And there it was. She was not just denying it. She was blaming me. Blaming me for the fact that she had betrayed me. I had expected some kind of excuse, maybe even some half-assed apology. But Megan? She was furious that she had been caught. No guilt, no shame, no regret. She was mad because she had run out of ways to lie. And that was when I knew there was nothing left to fix. I gripped my phone, knuckles turning white, watching as she crossed her arms over her chest, standing her ground. She did not look scared. She did not look sorry. She looked angry. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. I had spent the past 3 days drowning in shock, trying to make sense of the wreckage of my marriage. But right now, all I felt was clarity. I want you to say it, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Say what? She snapped. Say what you did. She let out a bitter laugh. Are you serious? You actually expect me to confess to something that never even happened? I did not move, did not blink. She huffed, shifting her weight. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. Ryan and I got close. Really close. You want to know why? Because, unlike you, he actually notices me. I clenched my jaw. So, you did cheat. She tilted her head slightly, lips twitching into something that was not quite a smile. Define cheat. I just stared at her, pulse pounding in my ears. Did you sleep with him? My voice was flat, emotionless. For a moment, just a moment, she hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the side, barely noticeable. But I saw it. That split-second pause. That one hesitation. And it told me everything. I exhaled sharply and nodded. Got it. Megan let out a frustrated groan. Oh my God, stop acting like some victim. Like you were this perfect husband who has never done a single thing wrong. You think you were innocent in all this? You made me do this. I blinked. I made you cheat. She threw up her hands. What did you expect? You're always working. You barely talk to me. You do not take me anywhere. Do not make me feel special. And now you are acting shocked that I found attention somewhere else. She narrowed her eyes. You neglected me. That is why this happened. I just stared at her. She was actually doing this. She was actually standing there, after betraying me, and making me the villain. I had imagined this conversation in a dozen different ways. I had expected lies, excuses, maybe even tears. But this was entitlement. My mind flashed back to all the times I had gone out of my way to make her happy. The extra shifts at work so she could get the things she wanted. The weekend getaways. The times I listened, even when I was exhausted, because I thought that was what a good husband did. And now, after everything, she stood here, acting like she was the victim. I took a deep breath, forcing the rage back. So, let me get this straight, I said, keeping my voice eerily calm. You lied to me. You snuck around behind my back. You slept with another man. And now you are standing here, telling me that this is my fault. She did not even flinch. Yes, because if you were a better husband, I would not have needed to. And that was it. That was the moment the last piece of my marriage crumbled. Not in anger, not in pain, in clarity. This was not a mistake. This was who she was. And I was done. I nodded once, standing up slowly. She took a small step back, eyes flickering with uncertainty. All right, I said, my tone even. You are right. Her brows furrowed. What? You are right, I repeated. I've been neglecting you, and you do deserve better. Her eyes narrowed, trying to read me, trying to figure out where I was going with this. So, I continued, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to give you exactly what you deserve. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few buttons, and set it on the counter. A second later, Megan's phone buzzed. She frowned, picked it up, and checked the screen. And then she froze. Her breath hitched. Her body went stiff. Because staring back at her were all the pictures, every screenshot, every stolen moment, every single shred of evidence. I just sent them to her parents. Her hands trembled as she looked up at me. You're going to need a place to stay, I said, my voice like ice. Because you sure as hell are not staying here. Her breath came fast and shallow. Wait, no. My voice was steel. No more excuses. No more lies. You did not get to cheat and still act like the victim. I turned toward the door, grabbing my keys. I needed air. I needed space. But before I walked out, I turned back one last time. Oh, I said, tilting my head slightly. And you might want to call your boss. Because I sent those pictures to HR too. Megan's face drained of all color. You did not. I smirked. Hope Ryan was worth it. And with that, I walked out. I stepped into the cold night air, inhaling deep. My hands were still shaking, but not from sadness. I was not broken anymore. I was just done. The second I had sent those pictures, I had crossed a line I could never come back from. And I did not regret it. Not one bit. My phone vibrated in my pocket, and I already knew who it was before I looked. Megan. I ignored it. Then another call. Her best friend, Emily. Ignored. And then a third. Her mother. That one made me pause. I was not surprised she had seen the photos. Megan's parents were old-fashioned, strict, the kind of people who expected loyalty and commitment. The kind of people who had welcomed me into their family. And now they had just learned who their daughter really was. I debated ignoring the call, but something told me I needed to hear what they had to say. I answered. Hello. There was a sharp inhale on the other end, followed by her mother's voice, tight with barely contained rage. Tell me everything. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. I think the pictures told you enough. No. Her voice was sharp. I want details. How long? Where? Did she... Her voice broke, and she inhaled shakily. Did she actually sleep with him? I hesitated. Then yes. Silence. Then softer. I raised her better than this. I did not know what to say to that. For the past few days, I had been thinking about my pain. I had not even considered theirs. I heard her father's voice in the background, low and gruff. Give me the phone. A moment later, he spoke, his voice cold and final. I did not want her in my house. I blinked. What? I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, poured myself a cup, and stood by the window, letting the warm sunlight stream through the blinds. No forced conversation. No fake good morning kisses. Just peace. I scrolled through my phone, idly skimming through emails, headlines, and notifications. Then, right at the top of my messages, I saw it. A text from Jessica. You went too far. I smirked, taking a slow sip of my coffee. That was funny. Megan had lied to me, betrayed me, made me feel like I was the one at fault. But I was the bad guy for exposing her, for making her face the consequences of her own choices. I typed out a response. Too far? You mean like sleeping with your best friend's coworker while your husband was at home trusting you? That kind of too far? Sent. Unread. Typical. I shook my head and took another sip of coffee, scrolling past the nonsense. But before I could even set my phone down, it vibrated again. Another message request. From him. Ryan. I nearly laughed. What? Had they all formed a little support group for cheaters who got caught? I tapped the message, already knowing it would be some half-hearted attempt at damage control. You're pathetic. She was never happy with you. That was the best he had. No defense. No apology. No weak excuse about how it just happened. Just an insecure little jab from a man who knew exactly what he had done and was too much of a coward to admit it. I replied, Then I hope you enjoy the miserable mess she's about to become. Good luck with that train wreck. Sent. Blocked. I was done wasting my time on people who thought betrayal was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. I finished my coffee tossed my phone onto the counter, and decided it was time for something more productive. The rest of the morning was spent purging. I went through the house, digging out every little thing that reminded me of Megan. Her clothes, her perfume, her stupid decorative candles that she had insisted we needed but never once lit. By the time I was done, there was a pile sitting in the middle of the living room. I grabbed a trash bag and got to work. Her hairbrush, gone. Her favorite hoodie, tossed. That framed picture of us at the cabin, in the garbage. Not once did I hesitate. Not once did I feel a flicker of nostalgia. No second thoughts. No regrets. The last thing to go was our wedding album. I flipped through it once, scanning over the photos of a life I believed in. I had been happy that day, or at least I had thought I was. But looking at those pictures now, all I could see was a lie. I shut the album, walked outside, and without a second glance, dropped it into the trash. That was it. By the afternoon, the house felt different. Lighter, cleaner, like I had finally scrubbed away the stain of what she had done. I stood in the middle of the living room, hands on my hips, taking in the emptiness. And for the first time in a long time, it felt good. Then, on a whim, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. For years, I had lived on her schedule, adjusted to her needs, compromised on things I wanted because I had always been considering her. Not anymore. I was not going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I was not going to let this turn me into some bitter, miserable wreck. So I drove. No destination. No plan. Just away. I turned up the music, let the wind whip through the car, and felt the weight of the past start to fade with every mile. At some point, I pulled into a little roadside diner, ordered a burger, ate in peace. And for the first time in years, I was not checking my phone. I was not waiting for a text. I was not worrying about the next lie I was being told. I was just existing, and it felt good. By the time I pulled back into the driveway, the sun was dipping below the horizon. The house stood quiet, calm, finally mine again. I stepped inside, locking the door behind me. And standing there, in the silence of my own home, I realized something. I was not sad. I was not angry. I was not even thinking about her. She was gone, and I was free. I turned off my phone, walked upstairs, climbed into bed, and for the first time in a long, long time, I fell asleep without a single worry on my mind. Because Megan? She had lost everything. And me? I had finally got my life back.